Yes or no?
We can shoot?
Okay, yeah.
Let's begin with an easy one. Why the first GLA Avengers didn't have it?
Oh, that, I mean, that was pretty well documented. Politics. DC made a mistake by having me start before the script was fully approved by Marvel, by Jim Shooter at that time. And Jim had some problems with the story, but I think he was also upset that basically they went on without him. That's not the way it was. It was a mistake, and it just got bigger and bigger. Egos got in the way, and had already done 21 pages, and I was being held hostage. And and it was sad, and that made me bitter for quite some time. And I wouldn't work for Marvel for quite a while because of that. But then, almost 20 years later, thanks to Joe Quesada and Mark Alessi, who founded CrossGen, and Tom Brevoort as well, and others, they finally said, why is this happening? What can we do to make this happen? And they weren't going to do any more Marvel and DC crossovers, except for that one. That one we owe George. And if I said no, then the book would have been dead. There was not going to be anyone replacing me. They kind of felt like, we screwed George, let's make it better. Did anyone need translation?
Resume, né?
Ué?
Resume um pouco.
No, the problem is the phrase it's too long.
I know that's why I should have stopped. But everyone's just listening, and I don't know. Okay, a lot of what killed it was politics.
Uma grande parte foi política.
Yeah, and the question was, what happened to the first JLA Avengers crossover?
A pergunta foi o que aconteceu com o primeiro crossover.
Basically, DC made a mistake.
A DC cometeu um erro
by having me start on the book without Marvel giving its official okay to the story.
A DC começou a escrever a história sem o ok da Marvel para poder fazer a história.
And I think egos got in the way. Then they were letting it become personal, and it just got out of control.
Eles deixaram isso ficar pessoal e saiu o controle.
So after about 6 months of constant back and forth bickering,
depois de 6 meses de vai e voltas,
I had to say, okay, then obviously the book is dead, and that's what happened 20 years before we finally did it again the right way.
Aí ele tem que falar, não, então isso acabou, assim. Aí 20 anos depois que isso aconteceu de novo, que isso pode acontecer.
I think we ended up with a better product.
E na década de 80, né?
I think we ended up with a better product.
Ele acha que acabou saindo um produto melhor.
The first one would have been one 64-page comic.
O primeiro seria 166 páginas.
Instead of 4 32-page books, so we ended up with much more story than we were able to, over 100 pages. And Kurt usually thinks it's wonderful.
Acabou saindo 4 edições de 84 páginas. Não,
32.
32 páginas.
Acabou o total mais recente.
Sim.
I've got a lot of translators.
Deixa eu aproveitar uma pergunta.
I want to make a question.
Você conhece o Tintoretto?
Você parece o
Pintor Tintoretto.
Do you know?
Tintoretto.
Acho que não.
Oh, Tintoretto, the painter?
Yes,
I'm
yes.
familiar, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, my question is, did his work had any influence in your work?
Not consciously. Because, I mean, at that time when I was young, the painters I saw, I didn't know their names. So I might have. I mean, I look at the stuff now, and say, okay, maybe in the back of my mind, yeah. But there are a lot of painters who affected me because of the
My
style.
question is because his painting has a lot of characters of painting, and you
one person.
Some scenes of prison films.
Well, it's interesting because I think one of the persons who made me want to do a lot of detail.
A pergunta foi se ele conheceu o artista, aí então ele falou que ele conheceu e ele perguntou se ele teve influência do artista. O Jorge Perez falou que não conscientemente, aí comentou que é porque o artista botava muita gente na página e ele também. E aí tá falando disso.
I think the one who influenced that actually was Barry Windsor Smith. And Barry was inspired by Tintorello and all the other painters of Free Raphaelite. So I think I got it second hand.
Ele falou que ele pegou de segunda mão porque ele pegou a influência do Barry e o Barry tem influência com o Tintorello.
Barry Windsor Smith.
Barry Windsor Smith.
Subindo na Troy, gostaria de saber qual foi a influência dele nas várias revoluções que teve com formulações que teve o personagem durante os Titãs.
About Donna Troy, you know the influence he got in the
Repercussões que ela teve através da história dos Titãs.
in the Titans story.
The influence on Wonder Girl, I mean, when I started drawing Wonder Girl, I mean, it was just the girl you wish lived next door to you.
E eu comecei a desenhar a Mulher Maravilha de uma mulher que você queria ter vizinho.
So we just made her the nice girl because until we did Who is Donna Troy, we started to figure out who she was in the background, what her history was.
A gente ainda não tinha o que era a história por trás dela, assim, mas a gente queria fazer ela uma garota legal.
At one point, when Marv Wolfman was trying to describe her, he was thinking of the singer Marie Osmond.
Em ponto ele tentou descrevê-la como a Mary Osmond.
So that was the basic physical inspiration. Now, when I draw her, I'm drawing my niece. Because she grew up to look just like Donna.
Pra ela, mas hoje quando eu desenho a minha sobrinha.
And she's just as nice.
About your work with Marv Wolfman in the Rise and the New Teen Titans, how was the creative process between
Marv, I don't know how this translates. He is the gold standard by which I measure all other collaborators. I love working with Marv. Marv and I.
A pergunta foi como é que foi o processo de criação. E ele falou que o Marv ele é tipo o padrão, assim, o que ele espera de trabalho de colaboradores, que ele adora trabalhar com ele.
When we first started working together, Marv would write a plot. He would break down the story page by page. No dialogue, just what's going on.
Quando a gente começou, ele fazia o roteiro escrevendo só o que ele queria na página, sem diálogo, página por página.
And then he would let me add things to flesh out the story.
E ele deixava eu colocar mais coisas na história. Assim.
Because Marv respected my ability to tell a story. And we both have the same belief that it isn't George Perez doing the comic, it isn't Marv Wolfman doing the comics, it's the Titans. That's the comic. That's the story.
Ele acreditava que eu tinha capacidade de colocar mais coisas na história também. Era eu e ele trabalhando junto nos Titãs.
And after a while, Marv no longer wrote plots. We talked it over. We just discussed the story, and I went home and drew it without Marv writing a single word of that.
Depois de um tempo, o Marv já não escrevia mais o roteiro. A gente discutia a história e eu ia para casa e desenhava.
And it was Marv who told me, you really should do some writing.
E foi o Marv que falou que eu realmente devia escrever também.
So I have a great affection for Marv Wolfman. He's a friends still. I regret we don't get much time to work together. But when we did games, like the graphic novel, it felt so good working with Mark Lucas.
Eu gosto muito do Marv, é uma pena que eu não posso mais trabalhar tanto com ele, mas a gente fez games também, que é uma graphic novel.
Okay. Good morning,
Good
George.
morning.
Well, certainly one of your first jobs for Marvel was for the Batcraft series Son of the Tiger for the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu magazine.
Better translate that, please.
Where you and the mentor created the first Puerto Rican superhero, the White Tiger. And I want to ask you, what did it represent for you to portray a Puerto Rican?
What was interesting, it was Bill Mantlo, who was not Puerto Rican, who came up with the idea of introducing a Puerto Rican hero. He took advantage of the fact that I was Puerto Rican, so he could write a story and I would know how to draw the background convincingly for a Puerto Rican character coming from the inner city in New York.
A pergunta foi sobre o primeiro personagem porto-riquenho, né? E ele comentou que a ideia não foi dele, foi do outro cara, mas que ele se aproveitou da oportunidade porque ele sabe como desenhar o Porto Rico e as pessoas de lá.
And when I designed Hector Ayala, the White Tiger, I used my brother as the model face for the face. And my brother's smaller than me, so I made him bigger.
Quando eu fui desenhar, eu usei o meu irmão como referência. Meu irmão ele é menor que eu, mas eu fiz ele maior.
Yeah, and like us, I'm surprised considering it was just for a black and white magazine that to this day I'm still asked about the White Tiger.
Eu acho engraçado porque foi para uma história em preto e branco e até hoje eu ainda sou questionado por isso.
And I guess it was an honor, like the reason I was asked. Of course, I don't know if I was the first Puerto Rican artist in comics, but I'm the first Puerto Rican artist who really made a big success in his career.
Eu não sei se eu sou realmente o primeiro porto-riquenho artista, mas eu sou o primeiro que realmente ficou famoso. Assim.
Hi, Mr. Perez. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have two quick questions that I'll try to make into one a little bit question.
Well, your question could be quick. My answer's going to be slow.
No. I hope they are. Going back to your creative process, and so my question is, the first one is about in your career, it has been like for a bunch of years right now.
This is my 40.
Yeah. We the readers have the sensation that at the same time we have a careful detail that was said about, but at the same time with some renovation aspects. So I want to know if you still study art, if you still look for references. And the second question is about the specific process of composing pages with lots of characters. What you do and what you feel.
A pergunta foi sobre o processo criativo, né? A segunda foi como é que ele faz para botar o tanto de personagem na página. E a primeira foi
the artistic references. If you still studies art and studies.
Well, first of all, I never took an art class.
Ele nunca pegou uma escola, ele nunca estudou arte.
I was accepted to art school. My parents wanted me to have a Catholic education. So we went to a very high scholastic high school that has art program that they canceled the year I went in.
Ele foi para uma escola católica? Foi para uma escola católica e lá tinha arte, mas parece que foi cancelado. Assim, os pais deles que queriam que ele estudasse de forma mais, acho que tradicional.
So like all the things I learned, obviously I learned by watching other artists and watching movies. One thing about loving movies that I did is that I learned how to tell a story by looking at the moving pictures. And when I draw a comic, when I lay out a story, and this is something that Marv Wolfman said I was a natural at.
Eu aprendi vendo artistas e filmes e eu eu consigo pegar a história vendo o filme, assim. Uma coisa que o Marcos falou
and is that I knew how to direct a scene. I knew how to set up a shot, and I knew how to go from A to B to C, maybe make a few turns, but always let the story work visually.
eu sei como dirigir uma cena, levar uma moça de A para B, para C e fazer
And doing a lot of characters, I treat them like actors. They're not just puppets that are different, that are just being moved around, and all that makes them different is their costumes. They are real people inside those costumes, and that's what I always try to think about. Like, who is Steve Rogers? Who is Don Blake? I mean, who is Clark Kent? Those are the questions that I keep in my mind so that they stay alive.
Eu não trato eles como marionete, eu imagino que são pessoas por trás das fantasias. Então, como é que seria o Clark Kent, como é que seria o Rogers, né? Eu tento imaginar isso e fazer assim.
And one thing I learned is when I draw comics, I'm all alone in my studio. I learn how to talk to people and keep social interaction through the characters in the book, because they have to talk to each other. So I have to pay attention. Now, what is it like to be in a conversation with a lot of people? And that's my social interaction on paper.
No meu estúdio eu fico sozinho, mas eu tenho que imaginar como é que seria a conversação entre as duas pessoas. Então, eu imagino essa interação.
And lastly, the amount of work, I'm crazy.
Finalizando, eu sou maluco.
Because I really love drawing comics, and I want the reader to know that I love doing comics. And they must know, if he's going to put all of that extra work in the book, he must really love it. Let me look at it. Maybe, obviously, if he loves what he does, maybe I'll enjoy it too. You know, if I don't love it, how can I expect anyone else to?
Eu amo desenhar quadrinhos, e aí eu faço esse trabalho com paixão, esperando que as outras pessoas gostem também. Como é que ele vai gostar se eu fiz sem gostar do trabalho?
Hi George, now I know you are an exclusive artist of Boom Studios. How did this happen and what are your projects there?
Well, I joined Boom actually. When I went to Boom Comics, I thought, my God, I'm going on a job interview, which I have not done since I've started. And they quickly said, no, you're not interviewing for us. We're interviewing for you. All you have to say is yes.
Ele perguntou como é que foi essa questão, que agora ele está trabalhando exclusivamente para um estúdio. Qual estúdio? Boom. Aí ele ficou preocupado, né? Meu Deus, já tem tanto tempo que eu não vou numa entrevista de emprego e tal, meio nervoso. Aí eles viraram, não é você que está indo para entrevista de emprego, nós estamos indo para uma entrevista com você, só precisa falar sim.
And it came at a good time because I was after doing the New 52 Superman and then working on Rose Fine, I wasn't happy anymore because the companies were now in charge of what the comics were going to be.
Eu estava fazendo os 952, mas eu não estava muito feliz porque agora era a empresa que estava cuidando dos negócios e como a história seria.
So we weren't telling our stories, we were being asked to write their stories. So, I mean, I was willing to work that way, but they couldn't make up their mind. They were still making it up as they went along, kept changing things, and I was confused.
A gente não estava mais escrevendo as nossas histórias, nós estávamos escrevendo a história deles. Assim. Eu até não tinha muito problema, não, mas parece que eles fazem muita mudança e aí começou a ficar confuso.
Yeah, and like when somebody came to me and said that somebody I already knew who was working at Boom was trying to, get a big name for their company, and they want me to create my own work. If I want to write, I can write again. And I would be in charge of my whole story. There's no Boom universe where everything has to be related to anything else. And thankfully, it was the right time. My contract was expiring with DC Comics.
Aí apareceu a oportunidade, tinha um cara querendo fazer o nome da empresa crescer, e aí tipo, eu já não precisava mais cuidar tipo, do universo da rua, assim, eu podia escrever a minha própria história. Assim.
And I was able to say yes. And unlike the work I've done at Marvel, at DC, I am actually an employee of Google. So I get paid a regular salary, and I have insurance and everything else. And the publisher, Ross Ritchie, when I was trying to tell, I have an idea for a comic that has two things that I like to do: teen books and women.
Agora eu tenho um emprego regular na RUM, eu tenho um salário regular, né? E o I forget the name.
Oh, Ross Ritchie.
Ross Ritchie, ele veio com a ideia para fazer duas coisas que eu gosto: desenhar muita gente e mulheres.
Yeah, so when I came up, the name of the group was She Devils, because I did a She Devils 1 comic when I was still an amateur, before I turned pro, and I wanted to just use the name again.
Eu fiz um desenho da She Devils quando eu ainda era um amador, e aí voltou com a oportunidade de novo, eu fui fazer novamente.
And what I like about Ross Ritchie is that he didn't want to hear what the story was about, because he wanted to be surprised when it came. That's a real change. A publisher who wants you to create your own world so he can be a comic book fan again. That is wonderful.
Uma coisa que eu acho muito legal do Ross é que ele não quer ouvir a história que você vai fazer, porque ele quer a surpresa. Assim. Isso eu acho muito legal, porque é um editor querendo voltar a ser um fã de quadrinhos novamente.
And people who know me, who read on Facebook, they know I love cosplay. Yes, so I designed a book that all the main women in the book are all real friends. A lot of them are cosplayers. One of them is my wife, one of them is my niece. So that when I come to a convention, I look forward to people being dressed up as my character. Like that lovely lady with Starfire yesterday. Wow. I sent the photo to Mark Wolfman too. I'm speechless. And I will be, when I'm ready to start the book, obviously my eyes have slowed me down, is that I want to use a lot of real people. So I'm going to be asking the people if they want to send special photos. Hey, this is not just women, and guys too. You can probably be in a comic in She Devils, because anyone who remembers my Crimson Plague comic I did years ago, which was not successful, but everybody there was a real person.